on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real with TNL. I'm Coach Ty.
And I'm Lori, and today we have an incredible guest joining us. He's a decorated veteran, a competitive bodybuilder, and the owner of Dark 30s Fitness in Woodland, California. Welcome to the podcast, Jeremiah Pauley.
Hi, y'all. How are you? So good to be here. Thank you for having me. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this beautiful day. So, without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, Jeremiah, just so our audience gets to kind of know you, tell us a little bit about who you are. Give us that quick snapshot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. First and foremost, I'm a very proud father. My daughter is she just finished her freshman year at San Jose State. Super proud of her. Fun little story. Like we were earlier this year, she was home on spring break, and she's like, "Dad, I know how to turn binary code into decimal point." And I was like, "What the heck are you talking about? Like, how do you do that?" And she's like, "Well, I don't have a pen and paper." And she's like, "That's all right. Here." She busts out her phone, and on the little notes app, she starts turning binary code into decimals. And I was like, first off, good for you. That's super cool. But question, are you the same child that cried at the kitchen table when I was trying to get you to memorize your multiplication tables? So super proud of her. She's so excited to get back and start, her sophomore year this fall. And I also have a son. He's 15. He'll be in 10th grade this fall. And he's not so much as too concerned about that going the route of college. He would drop out today and become a YouTube star if, if I let him. So proud dad, first and foremost, fitness enthusiast. Yes, I am a veteran. Proud of that. I am a transplant to California. I'm also originally from the great state of Ohio and love college football and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Huge fan.
He said it like he's on the team.
Like I'm on the team.
Heck
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
That's it, buddy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. So welcome to the show. And like we said, we are glad to have you here. And we're so glad you were willing to take the time to speak with us. So serious stuff. I'm going to let Lori start off with the question, and then we're going to go from there.
I'll reach out probably the beginning of next year because my only child starts her senior year of high school. And you're talking about college, and my heart kind of like sinks a little bit.
No.
And then you're like, but I have another child. I'm like, I have cats.
Right. Yeah.
So, but it's okay because I'm not to the point where I'm crying, where Ty's going to be like, you're going to have to not come on the podcast if you're going to cry. But I know that talk is coming, so I'm going to together.
Yeah.
But back to you. I think I wait to learn more about you. Tell us about your fitness journey through all of it. How did you get into it initially, and what led you from being a member to eventually owning your own gym? Because it's a big jump, right?
Yeah, big jump for sure. I don't really think, a lot of my passion for fitness like didn't even really start in the Army. I don't think it started until really, many years later, after I had left the Army, and I had seen a lot of my friends that were veterans, some of them with physical injuries far worse than mine. And they were doing this crazy thing on Facebook called CrossFit. And I was like, there's no way I could ever do that, right? I had so much negative self-talk. And I was like, there's no way I can do it. And so I would stay in a gym, like one of those big box 24-hour gyms, and try to get a workout in. And one day I was like, all right, I'm gonna go try this CrossFit thing out. And I went to the gym, and I started talking to one of the coaches who happened to be the co-owner. And he was telling me about what they do, and I was like, man, look, I'm scared. Like, I've got this injury. it limits, me from, doing certain things. Like, I'm just really intimidated. He's like, dude, don't worry about it. I got you. Like, you're going to be fine. Come in tomorrow. Class is at 9 a.m. You're going to have a great time. I promise. And I was like, 9 a.m. I'm like, now keep in mind, it was New Year's Eve when I went into this gym. And at the time, I was a big drinker. And I was like, 9 a.m. Like, okay, I guess I won't have to, I guess I can't drink a lot tonight, right? That was my first concern. And but when I got to the gym the next day, there was probably 30 people there. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. On New Year's Day, there's 30 people in this class. And he started talking about, the workout of the day. And the workout of the day was Fran. My introduction to CrossFit was
Are you serious?
a very yes, a very heavily scaled and modified version of Fran. And I was the last one to finish. But two big things that I remember that happened that day was, one, the amount of people, the amount of strangers that were cheering me on while I was still trying to do thrusters and ring rows. Because I wasn't able to do pull-ups at the time, that were just cheering me on. And then after, how everybody was just kind of hanging out, talking about football, talking about what they're going to do for dinner and how they're going to grill and all this stuff. And I was just blown away by people just sharing their knowledge and just being so friendly, some things that I wasn't used to. And the final thing that set in, I was like, this reminds me so much of the Army. People coming together for a cause that everyone supports, and then spending time together, supporting one another. And I was like, I want to do this more. And that was my introduction to CrossFit. And yeah, I loved every moment of it. Loved every moment of it. Stayed a member there for a while. That was actually out in Petaluma, when I lived out in Petaluma, and found, later I was moving to a lot of circumstances beyond my control out here to Woodland, and joined another gym. And that methodology, right? The constantly varied high intensity. It was just something so special about it. And giving people fist bumps and high fives after a workout, it just made me feel like I wasn't alone. And then the opportunity a few years ago popped up to uh, own a gym. And I went into it with a lot of passion and a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. And it's it's definitely been a wild ride, that's for sure.
Fran, New Year's Eve.
Yeah, Fran on
Fran
your
on New
that's
Year's Day, that's it.
that's not the one to come and kick it off to it. Honestly, you know, that
I love
is so cool.
think about it.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and just the fact that despite it being probably one of the toughest things that you had done
Oh
in a
yeah.
long time, it was obviously one of those life-changing moments where you were able to still see all the good out of that moment.
Yeah.
So very good.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
I
Jeremiah.
love that.
All right. So really quickly, we're going to move on to question two. And like I said, if there's any parts of this that you don't want to get too deep into, we
Yeah.
completely understand.
Okay.
But so, as we stated, we know that you served this country with distinction. And if you're comfortable, could you just share one? What was it that had made you want to join the service? And then a little bit about your time, as well as if you want to talk about it,
Yeah.
the Purple Heart event.
Yeah. Happy to. Thank you. Um, I grew up in a very patriotic family. I learned at a very young age. My parents teaching me about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and reading about World War II and Vietnam. Were I think some of my fondest memories growing up. And I remember I was probably, I think, 14 when Desert Storm was happening. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I just admired those men and women so much. And I remember my father, telling me, because everything was on television, right? Like, I remember my dad telling me, just straight out, he was like, listen, you have the rights and freedoms that you have today because of men and women like that. You are no better than anyone, including these men and women. Don't you ever forget the sacrifices that they have done so that you can live the life that you have, that we have in this home and in this country. And I was just so blown away by that. I just thought it was so great, that in this time of need and turmoil, that there were these men and women that were leaving their families behind, uh, to go put themselves in danger and fight for, freedom, for other people. And I thought it was so great. And when I was 17, I was sitting I was sitting in the guidance counselor's office at high school. I was in my senior year. I hadn't reached my 18th birthday yet, and my guidance counselor came over and she put in front of me a bunch of pamphlets and she said, "It's time for you to figure out what you're going to do when you graduate." And I had no idea. Like, I didn't have thoughts of going off to college. I come from a very blue collar family, of blue collar grandparents, of blue collar great grandparents, and I just assumed that I would be working a job, right? Like my parents did, and everything that entailed. But there was this one pamphlet that stuck out in my mind. It was a soldier rappelling down a cliff, and the caption on the front of that pamphlet said, "A year from now, you'll wonder why it looks so hard." And I was like, that's cool. I want to do that. And I read inside about how the Army Reserve would pay for my college. And I'm like, oh, this is great. The Army Reserve's going to pay for my college. Mom and dad don't have to take out loans. I don't have to take out loans. So I went home that day and I ran in the house. I was, Dad, I figured it out. I know what I'm going to do when I graduate high school. And he's like, yeah, what's that? I said, I'm going to join the Army Reserve. And my dad was like, have you told your mother? And I was like, no, I just figured this out today. Like, I stopped by the Army recruiter's office on the way home. They're coming over tonight. And he goes, oh, your mom's not going to be happy about that. Now, as much as my mom supported men and women in uniform, she also grew up during a very different time because her brother served in Vietnam, and his welcome home was not a pleasant. And I know she didn't want that for me. But the Army recruiter came over that night and he sat there in our living room and he told me everything the Army Reserve could do for me. And when he had finished talking, he looked me right in the eyes and he said, young man, what questions do you have? Now, before I could even answer, my mom, she stood up and in a tone of voice I had never heard before, she looked at that Army recruiter and she said, you can leave my house now. And I never saw that dude again. He just went, yes, ma'am, put on his headgear and walked out. Never talked to him again. My mom said, you're going to college, end of discussion. I said, okay. 17, I needed parents' permission to join. I needed that. And she sure as heck wasn't going to give it to me. So I went off to college after I graduated at the University of Akron. And I had a desire to study business. I joined a fraternity and I partied. I partied so much. Right? Like, completely against that Baptist upbringing, that I had, there with my mom and dad, and I partied a lot. And one day I got this letter from the school. They were putting me on this program. It's called academic probation. Yeah, yeah, right. And I was doing so poorly, that they were like, I think it's time for you to just go home and figure out what you really want to do. And I had worked in a pizza shop, back home, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go back and work in a pizza shop. And I was like, you know what? I'm 20 years old. My mom can't tell me what to do anymore. So I went back to an Army recruiter's office. I said, hey, I want to join the Army. I want to be airborne infantry. I want to jump out of airplanes and go find bad guys. Like, that's what I want to do. And they were like, okay, let's take some tests. So they scheduled me to go to the military entrance processing station, take the aptitude test, the physical, the vision, all the things. And I signed a contract that day to leave for basic training about 5 months later. And then came the hard part, going home to tell my mommy that I had joined the army. And she was not happy. She was really disappointed. But I had said, I said, Mom, I'm only doing what you and Dad have, instilled in me so much over the years. That one, core value is service. That if you're ever in the position to help someone, you should do it. That is one thing my dad said over and over and over to me growing up. And I said, I can do this and I can help people. And this is the way that I'm going to do it. And she was like, well, you're 20 years old. I can't stop you, but I don't think this is the right decision for you. So off I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training and infantry school and airborne school. And then I arrived at my first duty station in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I fell in love with the Army. I fell in love with getting up every morning, putting on the uniform. I fell in love with morning physical training, running, push-ups, sit-ups, all the things, the obstacle courses, the ruck marches. I loved learning. I loved being able to, fire a weapon, going to the range and, shooting with my friends and we had a lot of fun too, parties and, the drinking and whatnot. And I did a lot of different things in the Army. And in January of 2006, that's when I deployed to Talafar, Iraq with the 1st Armored Division. And I was a squad leader. I was in charge of some amazing soldiers. And I really believe that leading soldiers into combat was my dream job. I was in Iraq and I when I tell people I loved it, they always kind of look at me like, "What?" I'm like, "This is what I was put on earth to do. I was put here to lead these men into battle and to protect others. Like this is what was meant for me." Obviously, being in Iraq, we lived in an Iraqi house. We didn't have any running water. Um, Barely sometimes had electricity. Maybe we would get one hot meal a day. Living conditions for us were not great, but we were training the local Iraqi army and Iraqi police and, finding bad guys. And it was just one of the greatest things of my life, right? Kicking in doors and finding those terrible people that were setting up bombs and, IEDs and all that junk. And, um, on April 8th, 2006, we were on patrol through the city. I'd sent one of my teams into this house to clear it and conduct a search. We were looking for bomb making materials, and I decided to go inside to help. And if you can kind of picture this courtyard in front of this house, all the houses there in Talafar, they've got this walled off courtyard in front of them. And I was standing in this courtyard talking to one of my team leaders about where we were going to go next and what our battle plan was and things like that. And then after we got done speaking, I thought into my head, I'm like, how lucky am I? How lucky am I right now to be surrounded by these men that would gladly give their life for me? And I would most definitely do the same thing for them. I can't wait to get home and tell my dad all about my experiences here. I really hope he's proud of me. And one of my guys came up and said, "Hey, Sergeant, the house is clear. We didn't find anything." So I gave, signal for everybody to go outside. I started touching my guys right on the back, one at a time, to make sure I had everyone, right? Taking good accountability of my soldiers. And as the last man left, I just stood there in that courtyard and I thought to myself again, how lucky am I? And I walked out of that courtyard, and as soon as I entered the doorway to go back out to the road, boom, roadside bomb exploded. Dust like so thick in the air you could cut it with a knife. My ears were ringing. I had this metallic taste in my mouth, smell of sulfur in my nose. I first thought in my head, right, was bad guys are coming and they're going to start shooting. You need to get your hand on your weapon. And I kept saying to myself, get your hand on your weapon, get your hand on your weapon. But I looked down and my right arm was just hanging there, not responding at all. And there was blood all over my uniform and on my boots. And I took a few steps back and, I cried out for our medic. I was, Doc, Doc. And a few seconds later, he rushed in along with a few of my soldiers. And they began, applying a tourniquet to my right arm. And I was drifting in and out of consciousness. And then finally, a helicopter came and they started carrying me outside to that helicopter on a stretcher. And when I finally hit that road to go back or outside of that courtyard, that's when I heard Missile Dine is dead. Private first class Jody Wayne Missildine. He was 19 years old. He was from Plant City, Florida. He was one of my guys, and he was killed instantly during that explosion. This is actually him right here. I have him up here on the wall. That's him. Um, and at that moment, I just thought that his death was all my fault. Because as a leader, you take responsibility for what your people do or do not do. And it was my fault that I could not bring him safely back home. They took me to a hospital. It was in Mosul, Iraq, and I awoke several hours later. I had this external fixator sticking out of my right arm, holding it together. And there was a doctor by my bedside, and he was kind of telling me, a little bit about the surgery and what was wrong with my arm. And I'm like, sounds good, sir. Send me back. I'm ready to go. He's like, no. And I'm like, sir, I got a broken arm. Everything you just said. You put these pins in my arm. I'm in a sling. Give me some pain meds. Send me back. I need to go back to my men. And he said, no, you don't understand the severity of your injury. And he told me more about it, and it's like, okay. And ended up getting sent to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany for about a week as they tried to figure out what to do. Was sent eventually down to Walter Reed in DC, where they did the surgery and they put in some pins and some metal inside my right arm that really limits my range of motion. And shortly after that, physical therapy every day for several months. And um, then came, the doctors telling me that I can't be in the infantry anymore because I couldn't make a fist at that time. And I didn't even have, a lot of range of motion. And I remember that doc telling me, he was like, look, you can't pull a trigger. You can't even do push-ups. The infantry has no need for you. And I was devastated. I was devastated that I was losing my career. The one thing for nearly 11 years that I had focused on so much, losing in just a matter of moments, I was devastated. And so I was medically retired in 2007. And it hurt because I really felt all alone. I really, really felt all alone. And I felt like even though I was surrounded at that time by a lot of family, none of them had served and sacrificed and lost the way that I did from that day in Iraq and losing my career. So no matter how I tried to make the story, I just felt like nobody could really get it. Struggled for several years with a lot of alcohol problems. One night I had actually decided that I was going to take my own life. I had a Glock. It was in my closet. I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger, and I got so excited that I was going to take my own life and be with Jody. And that night I decided to go out and celebrate. because I finally had a plan. I went out drinking. I partied by myself so hard, and I got a DUI that night. Got a DUI that night. Went to jail. Got home the next morning. Went straight to sleep. And later that afternoon, there was a voicemail on my phone, and it said, "Jeremiah, this is Megan from Wounded Warrior Project. I need you to give me a call." I had no idea who Megan was. I knew about Wounded Warrior Project, this amazing nonprofit veteran service organization that serves post 9/11 veterans who I currently am employed for. Um, and she invited me to this really cool event. It's called Soldier Ride. They bring a bunch of warriors together and they ride bikes throughout the weekend. That was in 2011. And in 2011 is when I realized I was no longer alone because I had met men and women that weekend, some that were injured far worse than me, but many or all, that had served and sacrificed and knew what it was like to lose friends and lose a career, based off of their time in Iraq or Afghanistan. And that moment I credit with saving my life and putting me on a path to find fitness through physical health and wellness. So earlier, I talked about going to the big box gyms. I was doing that and it was great, but it wasn't as cool as, going to my first CrossFit class on New Year's Day. I've been able to overcome that injury. And so when I see people come to me or come into the gym and they say, well, I can't do XYZ, I'm like, yes, you can. Let me tell you a quick little story about how I nearly lost my arm and a doctor said I could never do push-ups again. Watch this. Like, yes, you can. And I can teach you how to do it if you just give me the chance. So a lot of my passion, for this field that we're in, comes from a place of great empathy, because I know if I could sit down and have such a negative attitude about what happened to me, I know that I'm not the only one. I know right now there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people sitting at home on a couch that are scared to get up and go do something for themselves because they're afraid of either being humiliated, or they're afraid because they don't know what to do, or they're afraid because somewhere along the line got in their mind and said, oh, you can't do that. And so when I get the opportunity to meet somebody and say, hey, I want to talk to you about fitness and I want to talk to you about how this stuff can change your life, like, I'm coming from a place of just deep emotional empathy that I know you said you can't, but I want to show you how you can. And for me, like, there are fewer greater things that we can do than to help someone else become the healthiest version of them. And that is just, for me, right? Like, when I see what you all do, I'm like, oh, that's the secret sauce. Y'all are making it happen. And then you're giving somebody like me a platform to, talk about like my passion for it. And I'm just grateful for that. So thank you. Yeah, that's like the short version, I guess.
That's a hell of a version, brother. Thank you so much for being so open with us and obviously sharing that. I know that takes courage, and I know that this isn't the first time that you probably told this story, but it's the first time that I've heard it in this level, in that detail. And obviously, it takes a lot to just be blatantly honest with that. And we appreciate that rawness and that realness. I'll let Lori say anything.
Yeah, I mean, you're a beacon of light, right, for so many people. And you talked about when you started with Army, like, this is my purpose. I'm meant to be here, but God has many plans for you, right?
Yeah.
And instead of, it was that moment that DUI made all the difference, right? And
Yeah.
here you are, and
Yeah.
the lives that you'll touch and save. This is an immeasurable thing. Like, we could keep track of names and dates, but your reach will be further than you'll even know, because people will hear this, watch this, get a clip of it, and it could be the difference of them taking their life or not, and knowing that they're not alone anymore. So, and of course, thank you for your service. I mean, you're this incredible human. I love that this will air July 3rd at 8:30 in the morning, and the next day we celebrate America and the freedoms and things that you put your life on the line for so many of us to enjoy. Um, all these things are amazing, and I do want to kind of pivot back to the population, the people that you work with the most as a fitness coach. Again, this is my first time meeting you, hearing your story, so I know that you and Ty have a little bit more background, but
Yeah.
tell me about who a particular type of client is that your training involves at your gym.
Yeah. So I mean, Woodland's a, small town, just northwest of Sac. But I also know that, reach is, limited in small towns, right? Reach is limited. And one of the ideas that I had earlier this year of, watching people like Ty and, other folks is, online training. Like, man, if this is really, my calling now to help people become healthier, to help hopefully impact, change, and save a life, what if I just did this a little bit differently and, found ways to offer inline training to folks and talked about how important nutrition is and talked about when coupled with, a good, we'll call it exercise plan, right? Can really make them be, a better person. And with that, like all the experts in the industry, they're like, oh, you got to find your niche. You got to find your, your ideal client. And I'm like, all right, well, what am I? I'm like, well, I'm just this dude that, okay, like, wait a minute, I'm a dad. I don't know how many times as a father when I was physically present but mentally and emotionally checked out because of all the drinking, because of all the poor eating, because of all the not exercising, because of all the self doubt and negative self talk that I just wasn't a good enough dad, right? I know for a fact that I was all those things. So why can't I go and help those people that I know I'm not the only one that struggled with that? Right? Let me go help parents. I want to help parents become healthier. And how many times, I'm sure you've heard it, like somebody come to you and be like, why are you doing this? You ask them, why are you doing this? They're like, man, I want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my kids and not be out of breath. Right? Like, I'm like, there it is. That's who I want to work with. I want to work with parents that are struggling to find that balance between work and being able to provide for their children, but need more energy to actually live a happy life with their children. Right. So that's who I want to help. I want to help those parents that feel like because they've been working so hard, right, to provide, a roof and food and clothes and all the things that they stop taking care of themselves, right? Like that's who I want to help.
And by doing that, it's a better upbringing for the children, right? And
Yeah.
working mom, like it's you're there, but you're thinking about so Ty and I've talked about this here through the podcast, like we're so much more present, right? And it's a whole different life. And it's
Yeah.
what you're talking about, the nutrition, the exercise, the community, the support
Yeah.
that makes us better humans. My case parent as well. Like when I'm with my daughter, every minute I'm completely dedicating to the attention she deserves, and she's happier for it. So
Yeah.
it makes her happy, loved, all that. And then when your parents are healthy and leading by example, like
Yeah.
kids grow up seeing what it's like to have a healthy, a future full of longevity and health. And
Yeah.
I love all of this. You're incredible.
Oh,
That's it.
you're
I was going
very
to say
kind.
very good. Oh no, I was going to say that's the bread and butter that Lori just hit on the head. Is that by you having that particular client avatar, you are literally affecting two lives in one. Because as she said, the stronger you get that parent, the better example they'll be to that kid. And if a kid sees that, hey, my dad or my mom is working out, they take health seriously. You're going to change the trajectory of that child's life and that entire family's life. And who
Absolutely.
knows how long that's going to trickle down.
Yeah.
So Lori was absolutely right. You know, I don't understand how it feels to lose it all, but I will say this: you are serving on a much higher level and a level that's going to be felt for generations after you.
Yeah.
This is a legacy that you're starting out that's going to build something huge. And I'm just glad that we even get to be here to speak with you about this. This is gold, brother. Like seriously, we might have to have you on again.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm honored. I appreciate y'all's time so much. And I think it's really cool when you know, you mentioned, you know, the two lives, like when the child sees the parent like taking care of themselves, right, in healthy ways, as opposed to, and I'm very guilty of this, overindulging in alcohol night after night after night after night, right? It's like it's a different thing. Like, oh, dad's taking care of himself. That's really cool. Like maybe I can go work out with him, right? Maybe I can go hang out with mom at the gym, right? Like, yeah. And then you start, you know, you start at a much younger age and teaching folks and their children, you know, about the importance of eating whole, nutritious foods. And yeah, it's like a force multiplier, right? Like that's what we as coaches should be aiming to be, is force multipliers for becoming the healthiest version of yourself.
Absolutely. So, speaking of something else that I know was a big accomplishment to you, and something that I remember seeing those pictures back in 2023 and everything. But let's talk about your time as a competitive bodybuilder and what made you start that, kind of get the courage to put yourself on that big stage, and what that training's like as compared to what you do now.
Yeah. That was definitely a lot of stepping out of numerous comfort zones. Um, it was the idea for that started with a couple different things. One, I I struggle with body dysmorphia, right? I struggle with body dysmorphia. I have for years, you know, as a result of, you know, probably, you know, the alcoholism. But I've struggled with body dysmorphia, and I had never taken my shirt off in a CrossFit gym. And I wanted to, but I was embarrassed by the way that I looked. And I thought, if I could do some type of physique show, that might help ease um, my fear. And I didn't know exactly like what step to take, but I had a friend, there's an Army veteran, a bodybuilder. Um, and I was like, hey, I'm really interested in trying this out. Could you help me? I want to just be confident in taking off my shirt. Like that was it, right? Like that was it. He was like, yeah. So he wrote me a nutrition plan. He wrote me a workout plan. Um, and it was a lot of strength training, you know, bench and lat pull downs and cable rows and bicep curls, tricep this, whatever, you know, all the things that you would typically see people trying to do, you know, in one of these big box gyms. I loved the format of it because it was so predictable. It's like, oh, what am I doing? It's back day. I know exactly what I'm doing on back day. Oh, it's leg day. I know exactly what I'm doing on leg day. I think that the soldier in me loved that big formal routine for the bodybuilding, right? I think that's why, you know, I really fell in love with it. And as I started that first cut, right, cutting out carbs, you know, 2 3 days at a time, you know, and started to really notice a difference, not just on the scale but in the mirror. I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is really really cool. And I loved also the spray tan, not gonna lie. I loved the spray tan. I Heck yeah. Like I'm a
Hey, me
I'm a
good dark.
I'm a pale dude from Ohio, right? Like that spray tan looks all right, you know, like um so that was kind of how it was born. But then after the first one, I wasn't where I wanted to be physically. So I did a second one. And when I did the second one, just about 6 months, not even 6 months later, I ended up winning a pro card at the event. Um, and I was like, a pro card, like that's super cool, right? You know, you got this first place medal they put around you, you know, and now I got like, oh, you know, because I won, like I'm a professional bodybuilder. And it's not ever like a title that like I had wanted to earn, right? It was like I'm really just doing this because I want to feel good about what I see in the mirror, you know? And then I did another one probably about 5 months after that. And at that one, I got down to probably 7 or 8% body fat, and just was like, wow, like I look great. Like I was finally like, I look good. But again, body dysmorphia kicked in and it was like, okay, how much leaner can you get? Right. And I haven't done another show since then. Um, but for me, it was just about trying to find a way to be the healthiest version of myself, you know, do some big strength training, 5, maybe 6 days a week, couple that with a WOD 4 to 5 days a week, you know, increase, you know, some cardio 3, 4 times a week. But working with a coach, like I couldn't have done that by myself. Like I really don't think I could have, right? Like I'm sure we run into this, you know, as fitness professionals often like people that are like, "Oh, I can do it on my own." You probably can't, right? Like you probably can't. Like it's not that easy. Um, but that was kind of how I got into it. I definitely fell in love with the sport. I definitely look at it now as like, yep, it's a lot of dedication, it's a lot of discipline, it's a lot of time. But goodness, like, is it so much fun to look at those progress pictures and be like, I did that, and
So,
it reinforces in your mind. It's like, if I can do that, I I'm doing myself a disservice by putting limits on what I can and cannot do, right? So
absolutely.
it was definitely a big mental mindset shift to be to think like I did that. Yep, there's nothing I can't do now. Like there's nothing that I can't do. You want me to go 3 days without rice and potatoes? All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna be happy about it, but I'm gonna do it. And I think too, like sharing that knowledge, you know, with other people, again, just making it a force multiplier. And like maybe WODs aren't your thing. Maybe bodybuilding is your thing, right? Like finding just different avenues, you know, and experiences to share with people, um, and to talk, you know, just to have more things to talk about. Um, it was fun. Um, and I might do another one. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. No, so that was huge. So I like that a lot just because it's people don't realize it. Most of the great things that we accomplish usually come from our own personal lives. And me and you obviously talked about this a few times, but and that's like one one of the things. And love it how your goal was not to be a competitive bodybuilder. It was, I want to look good with my shirt off. And that was such a strong enough urge and desire that it pushed you to do to this whole unseen level of 2 comps, pro card, first place victory, a whole new basic knowledge of fitness that you didn't have prior. Because now
Yeah.
you could talk to coach bodybuilders too, if you want.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you've
Absolutely.
already done an event, that you have a pro card, you not only added new skills to the toolbox, but you've also now you became a different person. And all was because of how big that why was to you. Now that may not be everyone's why, but as long as people find those whys, dude, that is the gas that leads to amazing things.
That's
That's
it.
amazing, man. Right?
That's it, brother. That's right. Finding your why is so important. Yep.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I was going to say there's nothing you can't do, but you said it first. So I'm glad you
Yeah. Right.
because I was going to be like, you must never forget.
Right.
Just knowing you for like an hour, I'm like, there's nothing Jeremiah can't do. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up with the rapid fire questions, the fun part of the interview. It's all fun, but the lighthearted, we're going to ask you questions. You're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Let's do it.
And then we'll wrap it up and get back to your day. All right. Want me to start? Okay. Favorite place to visit with your family?
Favorite place to visit with my family? Disney. Yeah.
Kids love it. Yeah.
Kids love Disney, right? I love it. I love seeing, especially my daughter. She knows everything about Disney. So as we're strolling through the park, she's always going through random facts. Love it. Yeah.
Love it.
All right. And is that just Disneyland or Disney World, or have you done both?
I've been to both. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Florida, is definitely a much different climate, during the summer than it is here. Yeah.
Yes, it
Like,
is.
yeah. Yeah.
Stuff. Good stuff. All right. Question number 2 coming from me. This one may be tough, but what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Tombstone. When I was a little
Oh,
Tombstone. I loved Tombstone. Like I don't know why I didn't grow up like playing, cowboys. Like I didn't like grow up like even interested in reading about that, but I remember watching that movie in a theater with a group of friends and I ended up watching it so many times that we would just quote that movie to each other every time we were hanging out. I love Tombstone.
oh, dude,
Yeah.
I love it. And that's actually where I get one of my favorite quotes from. Christ Almighty. It's like I'm playing cards with my brother's kids.
I love it. Yes.
I love that one. It's enough, brother.
Well, the next question is, what's your favorite state? You've been to a few. So if you could be anywhere, what state would you just pick for return?
If I could be in any state. Now, are we talking to visit? We talking to live? We talking to?
How about visit and then live? Give us a 2-part because
Okay.
I know it's a very different thing, right? If you could
Okay.
visit anywhere, where would you visit?
Um, it's it's technically not a state, but I love the museums in Washington D.C.
Okay.
I
Okay.
love I love the History Museum, the Smithsonian. I love all that stuff, right? I nerd out about museums, and all the coolest museums I've ever been to are in Washington D.C. Right? So anytime I go to D.C., it's like, all right, what museum are we going to? That's what I want to do. Um, if I were going to choose a state to live, I'm thinking of some place that's got big, wide open spaces, where, my neighbor is 5 miles down the road. And I think one of the prettiest places I've ever been was Wyoming, Sheridan, Wyoming. I loved Sheridan, Wyoming. I thought it was so pretty. Um, there was actually the airport that I flew into coming down, or going up into the mountain, whatever. I don't remember, but it was like, hey, if this light's blinking, turn around and go back because it meant that a snowstorm came and like snowed everything in, and all the roads were closed. Now, I'm really glad that like I don't have to put up with snow, but like maybe if I had, my own 20 acres or something, it would be okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's perfect.
Absolutely. That's so cool. All right. Next question from me. This is a little deep one, and this is one I asked to all of our guests. So it's going to be your turn. It's going to be your turn. So if you could have a dinner with anybody dead or alive, and you could ask them anything and talk about anything you want, and they'll be completely open and honest, who would that person be?
Anyone, living or dead. I'm gonna say Martin Luther King Jr. Um,
Okay.
when I was doing some volunteer work for a really cool nonprofit called the Mission Continues, um, we would do our annual MLK Day community service project. That we did, to honor his life and legacy, was one of my favorites, because we would be assigned a core value that we had to tie into the community service project. And
Oh,
through it, not only was I able to read a lot and learn about his life outside of the typical things that are taught in school. He was a man that just really believed in service. He was a man that believed in helping others, right? Which is very similar to how I was raised. And I would love to have dinner with him and talk about innovative ways to serve communities. How do we get service as a core value taught more in schools? How do we get into underserved areas better? How do we bridge this gap between low income families and fitness? How can we just help people level up? So Martin Luther King.
Awesome. All right, last one. Favorite book?
Favorite book. I was asked this the other day, and somebody was like, "Wow, I'd never considered that." One book that I read in high school that has stuck with me for years was Fahrenheit 451. This was the book about, I don't know if y'all remember, this was the book where it was like set in the future and books were essentially banned. And there were firefighters that went around, and whenever they found books, they would burn them. And when I was reading that book, I remember thinking, how terrible would it be to live in a world where books were not allowed, to where you had like this government entity like saying this is the only way to live, XYZ. Oh, there's a book. Nope, you're not allowed to read that, because if you read that, you're going to become empowered. You're going to become more intelligent. You're going to want to do more things for more people. And it's like, wow, so scary. So that is the one book that has stood out in everything that I've ever read, that just makes me go, oh, okay, as long as we keep books around, I think we're going to be doing okay. There's always going to be room for improvement, but we got to keep books around.
It's a good book. I'm a literature major. Even my master's is in literature. So
is it really? Oh my goodness! Did I just?
I probably still have a copy of that book somewhere in a box. Yeah, I love that.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, Lori's a special person, man. She's super cool. So that's all we have. Jeremiah, is there anything that you want to leave us with, or let the world know if they didn't get anything from us?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Find a way to help people every day. Just go find a way to do something cool for someone that's not going to repay you, right? Small acts of service just add up. They make you feel good. One of the things I would tell people, sometimes is, service is selfish, at least for me. And the reason that it's selfish is because my trauma, right, from being wounded and not being able to, wear that uniform has affected me so much, and hurt me so much. Every time I do something for someone that can never repay me, I feel just a little bit more. And I continue to do it so that, in part, yes, I know it's the right thing to do, but also in part so that I can heal just a little bit more. So just go serve others.
That's awesome, Jeremiah.
We need to go to Woodland. We're just gonna let Tim run the whole place and Tyler can do a road trip. We have to come see you.
Yeah, we need to come hang out. We need to come hang out. Yeah. Get some good food, get a good workout in. Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. Maybe not Fran. I'm just gonna
We're not that.
sweet. Give me in here.
I'm still scaling Fran no matter what.
Sounds good to me.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that wraps it up. As always. Oh, really quick, Jeremiah, if there's parents out there who want to sign up for your online coaching, where can they find you at? If you drop your info.
Yeah, Instagram is the best place, I think, at coach_Jeremiah_Pauley. Best place to find me.
All right, perfect guy. This is the guy right here, bodybuilding, veteran, gym owner. As you guys heard, has a heart who wants to help others. His mind is all about service. These are the individuals who you should want to be around. These are the type of individuals you should want in your life. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. You have a wonderful day, brother.
Appreciate y'all so much. Thank you. Make it a great day, y'all.